Another question is, do you need always to build a minimum viable product? Well, it depends. Hey, Juan here. In today's video, we are going to talk about MVPs, minimum viable products. We are going to talk what are they, why should you care about them, actually, should you even care about them? The concept of minimum viable product was made popular for everybody in the Lean Startup book by Eric Ries. The idea behind a minimum viable product, it's basically what the name says, is that how can you build a product that it requires the minimum effort from you as a company, as a developer, as a team, but it actually is going to be already a good enough product for users to start using. And the goal is that in most of products nowadays, especially if you think about tech products, but not only tech products, in reality, you don't know what your users are expecting. So you can think about product building and product development as a discovery phase, where you actually have to discover what you are building. And how are you building something that is a solution for your customer needs? This is why it's important to have this journey together with your customers. Minimum viable product, it also implies that you are going to be working hand in hand with those users to get their feedback to understand that your product is what they need. The first thing that you want to achieve with a minimum viable product is that you want to actually validate your approach with those users. You want to validate your product and the features that your product contains with those users. And why this is important, as I said earlier, in many cases when you're building products, especially tech products, you actually don't know what your customers' needs and what are your customer expectations until you start working with them. And this pretty much works for everything, not just for digital or tech products. The goal with the MVP is that you are actually working with those users to help you validate your ideas and validate your approach before you actually start developing full speed the whole product with the vision that you think that it has and what it has to achieve on the future. The next aspect of a minimum viable product is to be able to time the market. Nowadays, solutions are coming up all the time, startups are coming all the time, taking new directions, taking new approaches. So many of the ideas that most of us are thinking, somebody else has thought about them already. So how can you actually be able to get to the market as soon as possible? Building this small feature set, this smaller product that is more compact, that is focusing on bringing value already to your customers, although you know that in the long term you are going to have to grow and have to build more features and make it more powerful, it's going to help you start addressing those users before your competitors or your potential competitors would be doing it. The goal of the MVP, of course, is not just to validate your idea, but it's actually to bring traction to your product. This is why it is very important that your MVP, it actually delivers value and delivers a good enough feature set for your users to start using it. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's a B2B product or if it's a B2C product, you have to make sure that what you're building is something that your users are going to enjoy, that they're going to find value on, and that they will want to continue that journey of building the product in the future with you. MVPs, because of their nature, because we want to build this minimum viable product, they have to be quite well defined on what is the feature set that they need. You have to be quite critical to understand what are the must-haves, the must-have features that you have to include. Potentially, if you have already competitors, there's going to be things that your users or your potential users are going to expect from the kind of product that you're building. But then again, it's also very important to have those nice to have features that your competitors most likely are not going to have. And especially if there is competitors and it's not a blue ocean market where you are building your product, then you have to focus on what are going to be the differentiated features from your product compared to those competitors. And how are you going to provide value that other products don't have in that same space to your users? And going back to my first point, an MVP tries to validate your approach with your customers. And this will happen again and again. Every time that you release a new version of your product, you're basically trying to validate with your user base. And here it's very important to understand that many times, and you can see this because most of the startups tend to fail, these ideas are not validated by the users, which means that you will have to pivot. And by pivoting, you will try to find that idea that actually those users are actually going to need. This is a difficult journey, and as I said earlier, many startups, most of the startups actually fail for one reason or another. It's not necessarily because the idea was bad or because they couldn't validate. There can be other problems. But in the end, you have to be able to be critical and get the feedback from those users, especially when your MVP doesn't fulfill the needs that those users have. Then you have to be able to understand that, okay, what is exactly that the users' needs are? What are their problems? And how can we help them solve them? And then you will have a new idea that helps you pivot into the direction that is going to actually help you building that product that your customers will need. That an MVP is a bare bones version of the product doesn't mean that it's a product that is not usable. That's a very different thing. The set of features that you have to offer to your customers has to be valuable enough. There is this triangle that many people have been using to compare of what is the approach of a wrong MVP compared to the approach of a correct MVP, where they actually talk about just features, that if a MVP only concentrates on building features and adding value, that's not going to be something that actually is going to engage users to continue using the product. It's very important when we build an MVP that we also take into account the user experience and the usability of the product and make sure that we are building something that users love. Many designers nowadays talk about minimum lovable product. How do you build a product, the MVP, that actually will help you to get the engagement from those users, to get those users to really love your product from the get-go, and it's not just a stripped down feature set. And yes, we could discuss for quite a long time what is a feature, because UI is a feature. Making a product lovable is also a feature. So let's not go that direction, let's not now. So one of the things that people tend to understand by MVPs or minimum viable products is that MVP is a way of working that is only applicable for new products, and that's not the reality. Existing products where you are actually building new features, or especially if you are building a large feature set, you can also take the approach of an MVP, where you are actually building a smaller set of features that actually will help your users understanding which direction do you want to take them, and then release it to them and get their feedback to actually build the story together with them, where you get more the engagement with the user to understand that this is what they actually need. We will build this new feature within the larger product that it will actually help those users find the solution that they actually need. You could think that, for example, YouTube Shorts, or when YouTube started live streaming, those are new features or new products, and they can be still built as an MVP. They don't need to be a whole product on their own. I talked in one of my previous videos about the difference between a project and a product. Typically, projects have a set scope, whereas products might have a vision, but they don't necessarily have a set scope. Product nowadays especially are not fixed in a scope. Usually our users don't expect that your products, the products that you're building, are going to, they are not going to evolve. Pretty much everybody expects that all the products are going to evolve one way or another, especially if you are thinking about tech products. This means that the idea and the fundamentals of MVP, of starting small and then growing together with your users and expanding the solution and the product together with them, is a very viable way of working. And this is what many tech principles of working nowadays are talking about when you think about agile, when you think about design thinking. This is the way that they recommend to work, by working together with your customers and actually evolving the solutions together over time. Another question is, do you need always to build a minimum viable product? Well, it depends. As you can imagine, it can be very different, and it can be different situations where you need a minimum viable product or you don't. If you are building a smaller feature, typically you don't. If you are building a large feature and a large feature set or products, then I always try to take the approach of a minimum viable product because it's a much easier way to make sure that what you're building is what your customers need. And can you fail when building minimum viable products? Sure you can. You can fail at everything in this life. So MVPs are no different. You can always screw up. It doesn't matter what you are doing. MVP is a tool to help you actually validate your ideas as soon as possible with your users, instead of building a full product where you have little to no interaction with your users and the potential risk and the potential failure is much bigger. But this also means that you actually had to pay attention that your minimum viable product is something that your customers are going to like and are going to enjoy. So think about maybe not calling it just a minimum viable product, but thinking about a minimum lovable product. So what is your approach? Do you actually build minimum viable products, or do you actually just go for full features or full products before you actually start gathering feedback from your users? Let us know in the comment below. I will see you in the next video. And remember, stay safe.